Hi, this is Pam. I'm back again with a follow-up to my last video. I made a video about the triangle log cabin blocks, and it is video number 20 in my playlist. If you want to go back and look at that, that will help you, give you some context for what I'm going to talk about right now. So I have been working on making these triangle blocks that are made through the use of a foundation and a drawn template. So this is what the foundation looks like, and before it's sewn, and this is after it's sewn. This is but not yet trimmed up. So I'm going to explain some of the steps of paper piecing, what would be called paper piecing, except on this instance we're not using paper, we're using an interfacing product. And if you go back to that previous video of mine, which I will link in the description, you will get some context and some instruction on how this is started. I usually start, all of my triangle blocks have a red center, and it is about a 1x1 square roughly. And then I pre-cut strips that are 1 inch wide for the strips that go around the block here. And I alternate light, dark, light, or I reverse that and I start with a dark next to my center, light, dark, dark on the outside edge. Then I do half one way, half the other way, and then when they're matched up together against each other, they have an alternating effect. So I pre-cut the width of the strips at 1 inch, and then the final outer round, I use a wider strip so I can press it flat, get it nice and steamed, and still be able to cut on this red line, which you can see vaguely here. This red line will be the trim line for my blocks. All right, let me tuck this away. This starts from the center and works out on all 3 sides at a time. So the center is going to be this red fabric, and the drawn side of the interfacing is going to show you the sew lines. All of these are the sew lines. The other side is going to be the fabric side. So I'm going to locate the line that's right between the first strip and the center triangle. Let me flip it over so you can see that again this way. The first strip, then this will be number 2 and number 3, and you will always go in that order. I'm going to do a round of light and then a round of dark in the same order. So this would be 4, 5, 6, and etc. all the way around. So to start out, I need to have my fabric on this side, and I need to have this be my first stitching line, if you can see that little line there. And I'm going to overlap my fabric by about a 1/4 inch past that line right there, because that's going to be basically the seam allowance. And it needs to be roughly centered, but covering up this point and this point. And take my first strip of fabric, which is just a little one. It's going to go right side down against that center square. And I'm going to line up these 2 edges, and that's where I'm going to sew from this side of the fabric. And I'm going to scooch over here and just do that. We're in my little tiny sewing room here in our trailer. I'm going to sew on this line that I just kind of demonstrated before. I'm going to start a couple stitches before this side seam and this side. So I'm going to just take a couple stitches there, sew across that little line, take a couple stitches beyond. And with this machine, I don't have a knee lift. I don't have any automatic up down. I could back stitch, but I generally don't. You can do that if you like. I trim my threads. I fold this over, so I'm looking at the fabric from this side. and I want to press this out some way. I've been using this little roller, but you can use a bone folder or a little wooden stick iron, whatever you like. I don't use an iron on this because the heat can sometimes cause problems with the interfacing. So I don't iron anything until I get this all covered. Okay, so I've got this first one laid on there. And I need to make sure that when I come around to sew my next seam, I'm going to have a good spot to mark where I want to lay my fabric edge for the next row. In order to do that, I'm going to lay this card. It can be any cardstock or anything. This is a postcard. Lay that on that stitch line, fold the interfacing back, grab a ruler that either has a 1/4 inch mark on it or the lip, as in the add a quarter ruler. There's also a longer length of add a quarter, and there is an add an eighth ruler. I'm going to take my rotary cutter and just slice off that excess fabric there, and that will give me, when I come back around, the right position to place my fabric. Because I now have the center nailed down, I am going to do a little bit of trimming on these two sides as well, so I will have a good triangle shape to sew on there. So again, I'm going to lay the card on the line, pull this back, lay my ruler on there, slice it off, and then rotate it and do it again on this side. And yes, I could use a rotary cutting mat, but sometimes I find it easier just to turn it myself. I'm going to put that ruler on top of there. Even if there's a lump there like that, I still go with it because my eye will be able to see what I want to sew on. So then this shows you, I now will have, this is number 2, I will have a pretty good line set up for matching my fabric to there as well as there. So after I've done this first one, it will look something like this. I will have that strip laid down. I will have these two sides of the triangle, which are number 2 and 3. So I'm going to sew here on 2 first. I have these are different fabrics than what I just showed you because I am making different blocks, but this is light. So we're going to proceed as it's a light. I'm going to lay it on there, matching my raw edge to that raw edge. I need it to extend a little bit beyond this cross seam and this cross seam. I'm going to pin it down there. I'm going to flip it over, take it back to my sewing machine, and I am going to sew on this line right here. And I will be starting again a couple stitches before the cross seam and a couple stitches after is where I will stop. And that's all you need to do there. Take this off, cut my threads. This machine does not have a thread cutter. This is called a Singer Featherweight if you're not familiar with it. It's an old machine, but it's a very good compact travel machine. It only sews forward, backward, and it does have a reverse. If you move this lever up like that, you'll get a reverse stitch. I generally don't do reverses on these seams because each one is going to be crisscrossed with another stitch line. So then I'm going to lay this over like that. I'm going to roll that seam to make it flat. I'm going to place the fabric side, right side down, and I need to trim. I just sewed number 2. I am going to take my card and lay it on the line between 2 and what will be the next round of this side of the triangle. I'm going to fold this up out of the way, lay my lip of the add a quarter ruler next to the card, trim this off, and lay it back down, and I will have something that looks like that. Then I'm going to continue on and do the same thing around here with another piece of light. And then this is what it will look like when you've done a little bit more work. You've got all 3 of your light strips around here, and it's time to start with a dark round. And you're going to go back to 1. You can see 1, 2, 3 on this side. And you will always be able to tell number 1 after you get the hang of this, because it's the shortest piece. It will have both sides covered by a seam with the same fabric. This will be number 2. It's the next longest piece, and number 3 will be the longest side. So I'm going to take my dark strip, lay it right sides together with this fabric, and line up the raw edges right there. And I need it to extend a little bit beyond this side seam and this side seam over here. I'm going to stick a pin in it. I'll go back to my machine. I'll sew one more time here, just as a demonstration of how this works. So I'm going to go just a couple stitches beyond that cross seam. Take this out, cut my threads, bring it out here, fold this over, roll it down a little bit. Looks like I got that a little bit twisted, but that's okay. It's still going to cover. And lay after I sew a strip on, I do my trimming for the next round. Lay the fabric side, right side down. Lay your card on this next stitch line that's going to be happening when I come back to this side. Fold the interfacing out of the way. Lay your 1/4 inch ruler on there. Trim off any excess fabric. That one was cutting it pretty close. It was a narrow strip. And then you'll have something that looks like this, and then you'll continue on with this same fabric, the dark, and do this side and this side. When you're done with that, you'll have something that looks like this. Again, here's your center. This is a row of light. This is a row of dark. The next one will be a row of light. I've trimmed all of these so you can see there is a nice uniform line there for stitching on. When you are here, you'll place your fabric right sides together, and then when you're sewing, you'll be sewing on that line. This is the first side, so it should probably turn it to show you. You'll be sewing on that line, and then continuing on with number 2 and number 3. Eventually, you will get to the position where you are on your 5th strip. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 will be the finishing round on this. I've sewn one strip down to demonstrate for you why I like to have that an extra wide strip. When I flip it over, after I've done all 3 of these wide strips, I want it extending beyond this red line. I press this really well. You can use a little bit of starch on it or spray sizing on it if you want. And then from this black backside where you can see that red line, you're going to take a regular ruler, not necessarily your add a 1/4 ruler, and trim right on that red line. Then this will be ready to sew onto the next adjoining block. You'll have your 1/4 inch seam allowance figured into there, and it will butt up against a dark one. So it will look like a continuous alternating triangle. I don't need to use very many tools for this. I have a little cutting mat. I have my ruler, a card, this little wooden roller. You can use this or a bone folder or anything that will make a flat pressed look without using an iron. Need a scissors. I often need a seam ripper, my rotary cutter, a few pins, and besides my machine, that's about all the supplies I need for this. And I just continue making these blocks of all different colors and putting them together. I will be able to put them all together before too long and show you that final result. In the meantime, start to work on some of these. Look up some of the videos that are made by teachers, women who teach paper piecing as a profession, excuse me, and are very knowledgeable and adept at explaining the process. It is a different process than regular stitching, so it might take a few tries for you to wrap your head around it if you haven't done it before. But this has been fun, and I wanted to share that information with you. Good luck. Have a good day. Bye-bye.